Elizabeth and John Calvert disappeared on March 3, 2008. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. The Calverts' last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to them. A much-loved couple, Liz and John Calvert, owners of a yachting resort, living the good life.
They enjoyed being with family and friends and doing things that brought a richness to life.
But their business is in trouble.
She was starting to suspect that there might be some embezzlement going on.
They confront their former bookkeeper.
The former accountant, told Liz, I got it figured out. It's like a computer glitch, no worries.
The next day, when the couple's nowhere to be found, police question the accountant.
Well, he told us a lot that were later found to be lies.
Where are the Calverts? And what does this crime scene have to do with them?
There was 360 degrees of blood in that bathroom.
On Monday, March 3, 2008, the day they disappear, Elizabeth and John Calvert meet with their former accountant at 6 p.m. The meeting is about the troubled finances of their yachting resort called Harbor Town, located in picturesque Hilton Head Island, South Carolina.
We have all of the water-related sports here: kayaking, parasailing, tours and cruises, fishing.
They also had a rental property business that they rented out condominiums and apartments.
Until recently, business was going well. When the Calverts acquired Harbor Town Yacht Basin in 2005, John, an engineer and boating enthusiast, cultivated a laid-back and friendly atmosphere.
John was in love with the Harbor Town Yacht Basin and just loved the people and, trying to come up with ideas to make their experiences more fun. Liz was, behind him and kind of the practical side.
Liz helps John at Harbor Town half the week. She also practices corporate law in nearby Savannah, Georgia.
She was a tax attorney, and she thrived in it. She liked understanding the nuances of the tax laws, and very much detail-oriented, very much wanted to find out the resolution to a situation.
Liz plans to leave her law practice and work full-time managing Harbor Town with John by spring of 2008. They'll keep their houses in Atlanta and Savannah, but live on their yacht docked at the marina.
I think they had life figured out. I think they enjoyed things together and enjoy each other.
At the end of 2007, Liz takes on some accounting duties as part of a gradual transition to her new role managing Harbor Town, while John continues catering to the clientele.
I thought, what an amazing team they were going to make.
Until Liz's involvement, Harbor Town's bookkeeping had always been handled by an outside company, a local management firm called the Club Group.
They were a hired management company to take care of the financial end. They actually wrote the checks. They were John and Liz's financial arm.
The Club Group's financial and accounting practice is run by 54-year-old Dennis Gerwing, a well-liked member of the Hilton Head community.
John and Dennis had been friends for years. We had worked with Dennis for 20 years.
Although Dennis had already been managing Harbor Town's finances prior to the Calverts' acquisition, Liz never felt completely comfortable with him.
Liz was never really one to let other people manage her money, but because the gentleman that was managing the books from her perspective was someone that had been involved with the business before they purchased it, and they had every reason to trust him.
But as Liz eases into her new role, she can't help but notice what seemed like careless accounting errors.
She was starting to go through the books and had uncovered some discrepancies that she couldn't quite explain. And knowing Liz, was going to spend whatever time she needed to try to get to the bottom of it.
They decide that all of Harbortown's accounting should be in-house and under Liz's control by December 31st.
They let the other firm go, at the end of 2007, and then she started in earnest, January 1 of 2008, being the accountant, if you will.
And at first she didn't have any real concerns, but she just thought that there were some things that needed explanation.
John believes that whatever the problem, Dennis can shed light on the confusion easily enough. But Liz takes a more aggressive approach.
It was like bills weren't getting paid, we couldn't get balance sheets. You would ask about something and you just couldn't get the answers that you were looking for. And it made Liz very nervous.
Liz is beginning to think that the bookkeeping discrepancies might involve missing monies.
She didn't go into a lot of detail about what she was finding, but she really wanted to get to the bottom of it before she started accusing people. It was just her nature to assume that there was a reasonable explanation.
She was going to approach it in a very logical, a very professional way.
At some point, she came to a conclusion that she was going to talk to the accountant about that.
On Sunday afternoon, March 2nd, 2008, Liz has a quick meeting with Dennis Gerwing. He says there's a reasonable explanation for the accounting errors.
The former accountant, told Liz, I got it figured out. It's like a computer glitch, no worries. So why don't you bring John back tomorrow and have another meeting, and we'll just talk about it at that time. So she confronted him essentially by herself on that Sunday, but then was deferred to bring John back the next day to kind of hammer it all out.
The next afternoon, Monday, Liz is on her way from her office in Savannah to the next meeting she has with Dennis Gerwing at 6 p.m. As she drives, Liz calls her friend Terry McClure to have a quick chat. The topic turns to the potentially awkward meeting that Liz is about to attend with Dennis Gerwing.
And I remember kind of making a joke about her. I was like, you're gonna do this in public, aren't you? And she's like, oh yeah, there's no reason to be concerned.
While Liz and Terry talk, John Calvert is touching base with Harbor Master Nancy Kappelman before he goes off to the meeting with Gerwing.
Ended up talking to John about 4:30 on the phone, and we had planned to meet Tuesday morning.
Neither Nancy Kappelman nor Terry McClure know it, but these conversations would be the last they have with their close friends, Liz and John Calvert. The next morning of March 4th, Harbortown is awash in sun and crisp spring air. Harbor Master Nancy Kappelman arrives at the marina to open for the day. She finds the lights inside the office are still turned on.
It's unusual, and I think it's odd, but then I think John and Liz must have worked late last night and just left the light on. And I walked in and I saw John's briefcase, which was another kind of odd thing because I'd never seen his briefcase before. And I continued on into my office, and there was the file with all the statements in it that Liz had said she and John were going to get out the night before, which was pretty unusual for them not to do something that they say they're going to do.
Nancy goes about her morning as usual, until 10 o'clock passes, without so much as a call from John Calvert. He also doesn't show up for the meeting they'd scheduled.
So I started calling him. It rang and went to their message. So I left a message, let me know when to expect you.
It appears that the Calverts' cell phones are uncharacteristically turned off.
Oh, it's very unusual. They're very responsible, and they were very responsive. You could always count on them.
Nancy assumes something came up last minute for Liz and John, so she patiently waits. But as the day progresses, she becomes increasingly concerned.
We had a meeting at 4 o'clock scheduled. John would never miss that meeting. And so finally about 3:30, I just canceled the meeting.
Nancy sends an employee over to the yacht that the Calverts live aboard.
We went on the boat and went through the boat and came back and told me that there was nobody on the boat.
They do find the Calverts' cat, PC, waiting to be fed. Also, Liz's car is parked in her usual space at the marina's lot, but John's Mercedes is nowhere to be found. Have the Calverts taken an impromptu trip? It isn't like them to leave without word. Nancy starts trying to track them down.
I knew that I had to do something. I had to figure something out. I called one of Liz's associates over the law firm in Savannah to get Dave's contact information.
In Atlanta, Liz's brother, David White, is leaving work when he gets Nancy's call.
I remember it pretty vividly. It was Nancy saying, hey, have you heard from John and Liz? We're trying to track them down, or, I didn't know where exactly they were, but I just felt like, okay, no worries, I'll give them a call and left voicemail messages.
Meanwhile, Nancy calls the Calverts' former accountant, Dennis Gerwing.
I asked if he had talked to John or Liz that day, and he said no. He hadn't seen them or talked to them. So I suggested that I call the chief of security, which I did.
About 24 hours after the Calverts were last heard from, Nancy Kappelman files missing persons reports with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina. In Atlanta, Georgia, David White does the same.
I met the police over at their house here in Atlanta, let them in, looked around, and they ruled that, no one had been or disturbed the house.
Like most missing adult investigations, this one is initially routine.
There was a possibility from the beginning that John and Elizabeth Calvert decided they were going to leave town and not let anybody know. There's nothing wrong with that.
This explanation sounds reasonable to Nancy Kappelman, but there's still one thing that's gnawing at her.
I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't feel like it had anything to do with it, but finally, I told them that Liz had concerns that there was some financial improprieties and the accounting. That got their interest at that point.
Coming up, the Calverts' business turns out to be in deep financial trouble.
She just said that there was a substantial amount of money missing.
Liz and John Calvert, the owners of a resort in Hilton Head, South Carolina, haven't been seen or heard from for about 36 hours. Police quickly locate Liz's car and her small airplane, which they find parked in its space at Hilton Head's airport. But John's car is missing.
John had a Mercedes, and it wasn't in the parking lot on Tuesday. And Wednesday morning, I drove through all the parking lots looking to see if it was anywhere around. Couldn't find it.
The Calverts' friend and colleague, Nancy Kappelman, initially thinks there's a simple but troubling explanation.
My fear was that they had gone somewhere in the car and they had had an accident.
Back at the Calverts' business, Harbortown Yacht Basin, the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office begins to investigate.
We were about 26 hours behind. When we got the report on March 4th, it was close to 7 p.m., and the last time the Calverts had been seen were March 3rd, about 6 p.m.
Employees tell them it's possible the last person to see the Calverts is their former accountant, Dennis Gerwing. The Calverts met with him that Monday evening, March 3rd. The sheriff decides to send his investigators over the next day to have a chat with Mr. Gerwing. The next morning, investigators arrive at the club group to find Dennis Gerwing sitting in the same office where he apparently met with the Calverts 2 evenings earlier.
He seemed concerned. He was basically telling us that they met and they discussed some financial issues, and then they departed.
Gerwing doesn't tell detectives the exact nature of the financial issues, but he does say they stem from an earlier discussion he had with Liz Calvert about the company's financial records.
Liz was kind of put off by Dennis and told her that, you know, I'm not going to discuss this with you alone. I'm going to discuss it with you and John together. And that's when the March 3rd meeting happened.
By the time of Gerwing's questioning, investigators already know from other sources where Liz Calvert had been shortly before the 6 o'clock meeting on March 3rd. And Gerwing seems to corroborate it.
We noted she went to the Yellow Jacket, which was their home, so to speak, here on Hilton Head. She changed clothes and went to this meeting. John had already responded to the meeting. He was with Dennis.
Gerwing says that Liz arrived at about 6:15, 15 minutes late, but the meeting only went on for another 15 minutes.
Dennis Gerwing said that Liz just said, John, come on, we gotta go, and they left. They never got to the point of discussing the issues at hand. Dennis says she didn't, you know, express why they had to leave, and commented that saw them getting in the same car.
Gerwing says when he left for home 10 minutes later, John's Mercedes was gone, but he saw Liz's Mini still parked in his office lot, though he didn't think much of it.
He had assumed at that point that they may have left and gone to dinner.
But later, Liz's car somehow made it to its usual parking space back at Harbortown. After leaving work, Gerwing says he took the long way home, stopping at a gas station on the way.
He said he got gas, bought a lottery ticket, and proceeded into the gated community where he lives.
As Dennis explains his comings and goings, investigators can't help but notice a cut on his right hand.
There was a few-inch laceration in the web of his right hand. It was very suspicious. He indicated that he went home after the meeting with the Calverts, and in the process of opening a wine bottle, it broke and he cut his hand.
Gerwing tells cops he went back to work, stopping by a local pharmacy, a CVS near his office, to buy Band-Aids for his cut. He says he worked till around midnight, then went back home to bed. Dennis Gerwing has lived in Hilton Head for over 20 years, has a solid reputation as an accountant, and until being questioned, has never had any run-ins with police.
Dennis Gerwing was sociable. He had a few close friends that owned local businesses and was trusted with a lot of money. He was not on the law enforcement radar at all.
Gerwing continues to cooperate by giving police consent to search his office, home, and 2 vehicles. Investigators examine his Toyota Avalon and find nothing out of the ordinary. Then they inspect Gerwing's GMC Yukon, which has just come back from a repair shop. They immediately notice that it has been thoroughly vacuumed.
When that car was examined, one of the bench seats was missing from the car. He offered the explanation that he was moving furniture. Oh, no, there's no witnesses to indicate that at all.
Police are skeptical, but do not come away with anything conclusive.
We found no evidence linking the Calverts to either of Dennis Gerwing's vehicles.
Next, an evidence team turns its sights on Gerwing's office. Although it is remarkably clean, there are no obvious red flags. At Gerwing's home, another well-kept place, officers do spot something unusual. A small pile of sandy dirt on the kitchen floor, and a freshly soiled shovel leaning against the outside of the house.
Dennis Gerwing offered the explanation that he had been doing some repair work to his irrigation system outside. Well, there was no evidence of any digging or so. The investigators became suspicious that maybe this shovel and the dirt on the kitchen floor had something to do with the Calverts' disappearance. And when they checked the trash where he says he threw the wine bottle away, there was no broken bottle at all.
Adding to their suspicions is a search of Gerwing's phone records. It seems his cell phone was deactivated at around 7:30 p.m., shortly after he met with the Calverts, and powered off until 11:15 a.m. the next day, almost 16 hours later.
Why did he power off his cell phone? Did he know that we would use GPS to track his whereabouts? That were extremely obvious that something here is not right.
With so many suspicious inconsistencies, the sheriff decides within hours of the initial interview to quietly change Gerwing's status from a mere witness to a person of interest in the disappearance of Liz and John Calvert.
Investigators contacted him via phone and asked him to come back in for another interview the following day and to take a polygraph.
Gerwing asks if he's now being considered a suspect, but because police have no evidence linking him to any crime, they tell him no.
He was asked to come back for another interview just to get a few things straightened out in his statement.
Gerwing reluctantly agrees to cooperate, but that phone call would prove to be the last direct contact between him and the sheriff's office.
Dennis Gerwing retained counsel. Either that night or the next morning, the attorney called and said he wouldn't be in.
It's a huge blow to the sheriff's investigation. Although Gerwing's statements don't add up, investigators still have no evidence to implicate him in the Calverts' disappearance.
The last person known to have seen the Calverts has now clammed up and is not talking at all. So you can imagine what that did as far as the progress of the case.
Coming up, what comes next is an even bigger blow to friends and family.
I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen with the business. I wasn't real sure where to turn.
When I learned that they had found the car, you're like, all right, maybe there's some pieces here, there's some logic to it.
It's the morning of March 6, 2008. A little over 2 days have passed since John and Elizabeth Calvert were last seen by their former accountant, Dennis Gerwing. At first, he agrees to help with the investigation, but then he hires a lawyer and cancels a polygraph exam.
And it really hurt or hindered our investigation because, again, the last person to see the Calverts made himself inaccessible to us.
Meanwhile, the Calverts' friends and family hold a tenuous vigil, hoping they will get some answers if police can find a silver Mercedes.
There was a car that was missing. John's car was, they didn't know where that was.
Although the Calverts have only been missing a short time, Liz's brother David White says their business, Harbortown, is already starting to founder.
They were the only ones that had the ability to financially move this business along. So all of a sudden, I was confronted with, what do we do with the business? We can't pay bills, we can't, pay salary.
I was scared. I was scared. I didn't know what happened to them. I didn't know what was going to happen to us.
David jumps into the fray, hoping to keep Harbortown afloat while employees work overtime.
We were putting up posters. We were trying to talk to everyone we could think of to talk to.
Local news outlets search for the Calverts as well, plastering the affluent couple's image over front pages and TV screens. Savannah, Georgia TV reporter Holly Bounds has never seen such media interest.
Typically, an everyday news story, it'll be your 3 local TV stations and 2 newspapers, max. This one, we had all national television stations there, and I think that the sheriff's office was just an absolute overload.
We were getting calls, you know, I saw a silver Mercedes, or I saw this, or I saw that, and we were tracking those leads down as they came in.
The Beaufort County Sheriff's Office is coordinating its largest search effort in recent history.
We utilized every resource that we had available to us. We utilized South Carolina Wildlife Department, South Carolina DNR, Department of Natural Resources. We had the FBI involved early on, and SLED, State Law Enforcement Division, including the local Hilton Head Island Fire Department for some man searches.
Late into the night of March 6th, these efforts finally pay off. While canvassing parking lots, deputies find John Calvert's silver Mercedes. It's parked at a hotel the Calverts never checked into, and it's 6 miles away from where it was last seen.
It appeared that someone had driven into the parking lot and found the first space available, got out of it and left. That vehicle had been taken there by a single occupant because there were coffee cups and other things that were on the passenger seat.
When I learned that they had found the car, you're like, all right, maybe there's some pieces here, there's some logic to it.
The forensics team, they process with chemicals, they look for fibers, hairs, anything that would put somebody in that car. And we found no evidence that would indicate any criminal activity linking Dennis Gerwing to that car. It was just a natural-looking car.
Without any blood, DNA, or fingerprints that would indicate foul play, investigators are back to square one.
It didn't solve any mysteries. It actually created a mystery for us as how the car got there.
And the Calverts' loved ones can no longer hold out hope that the Mercedes was taken on a road trip. With more questions than answers, authorities redouble their efforts to check accountant Dennis Gerwing's movements after he met with the Calverts. What stands out immediately is Gerwing's claim that he visited a CVS drugstore after he cut his hand.
His explanation for the cut was that when he was opening a bottle of wine, it broke and it cut his hand. And then he went to the CVS to buy some Band-Aids.
The pharmacy's cash register and surveillance video show that Dennis Gerwing did in fact buy Band-Aids the night of March 3rd. Except it happened at 7:15 p.m., almost 3 hours earlier than he claimed.
Of course, he left out the fact that he went in, bought some Band-Aids, went back out to the parking lot, came back in and bought some latex gloves.
Gerwing had never mentioned any latex gloves during his statements to police, and investigators never found any in his cars, home, or office. Now it's becoming evident to police that Gerwing may be trying to hide something. But soon, investigators do find a clue that Gerwing couldn't possibly hide. Video surveillance from the front of a restaurant next to Gerwing's office the night the Calverts went missing.
It was apparent that Dennis Gerwing was pacing back and forth in the late evening, early morning hours of March 3rd and 4th.
Police dogs have already sniffed for signs of the Calverts at that spot, as well as other areas behind Gerwing's office building. Faced with no solid evidence to implicate Gerwing, investigators weigh their options.
I think when we got to the point where the purchase of the latex gloves was made, we had established enough probable cause to search for any evidence that would help us determine what led to the disappearance of the Calverts.
On March 8th, the sheriff's office executes search warrants, returning once again to Gerwing's home, office, and cars.
But instead of just doing a look around, we did a search for any forensic evidence. Nothing was found. Zilch.
Coming up, police can't pin anything on Gerwing, but soon, a promising new lead emerges.
The last phone call he made that night was to the only witness to the planning, Shaha, his employee.
Get more Disappeared online at investigation.discovery.com. With mounting suspicion of foul play in the disappearance of Elizabeth and John Calvert, police turn up the heat, hoping to implicate the couple's former associate, Dennis Gerwing. But because he stopped cooperating, investigators turn to Gerwing's associates and friends for clues.
All the people that were associated with Dennis Gerwing were investigated, were talked to, were polygraphed. So many different opinions of Dennis Gerwing that were discovered during the investigation.
Most never imagined Dennis Gerwing, of all people, to be involved in foul play. But some indicate the lifelong bachelor was no Boy Scout either.
Some of his social habits were questionable. He had some dealings with some extremely shady people that came out during the investigation.
Except for a gambling habit and frequent sightings at a local strip club, police don't learn anything new about Gerwing's activities before the Calverts went missing. But the next day, cops get the kind of information they've been waiting for. One week after the Calverts met with their former accountant, Captain Bob Bromwich brings in a young woman named Shaha, who is Dennis Gerwing's assistant, for questioning. She is the last person that Dennis Gerwing called on the evening the Calverts disappeared. According to phone records, Gerwing made that phone call after buying the Band-Aids and leaving the CVS pharmacy, and just before he went back in to purchase those latex gloves.
The last phone call Dennis Gerwing made on March 3rd was to Shaha, his employee, the only witness to his planning that afternoon.
At the sheriff's office, Shaha tells investigators that a few hours before Gerwing called her, he asked that she follow him to the Hilton Head Airport so he could leave his Toyota Avalon there. While she followed him to the airport, Gerwing made a brief stop at his house.
She says he went in for a minute or two, came out with nothing.
Shaha says afterward Gerwing then drove to the airport, dropped off his car, and then left with her.
His explanation to her was that he had friends coming into town.
On their way back to work, Shaha says Gerwing instructed her to stop at the Graco hardware store.
She said he went in and bought some tablecloths or something, so we went back to Graco and found the receipts for the purchase, found Dennis on video purchasing 3 very large industrial strength drop cloths.
Shaha asked what the cloths were for. Gerwing replied he was in the middle of a painting project.
Friends and close associates of Gerwing said he was not the kind of guy to do a lot of manual labor. He wouldn't be doing painting.
Shaha says later at the office, around 5:30 p.m., Gerwing asked her to go to Harbortown to pick up some reports at the Calverts' office. When she left, she saw John Calvert arriving for the meeting.
It was apparent that Dennis Gerwing was going to ensure that he was at the office alone.
He sent her on a mission, then called her and said, don't come back to the office. We can take care of it in the morning.
But Shaha says the next day at work, March 4th, the morning passed without any sign of her boss. She says Gerwing finally showed up at around 1 in the afternoon, making no mention about why he was late. But he did ask her for one more favor, to pick him up at home the next morning and take him to the shop where his GMC was repaired. That next morning, Wednesday, March 5th, Shaha picked up Gerwing at his home. She noticed his Toyota Avalon was now back in his driveway. Cops can't figure out who drove it there.
The car was originally at the airport, but we don't have any evidence that anybody came into the airport to visit Dennis Gerwing. Well, nobody else was at his house.
As investigators mull over Shaha's story, they keep coming back to Gerwing and those 3 drop cloths.
These are commercial grade, 9-foot by 12-foot drop cloths that would certainly keep blood or any other hair or fiber evidence from getting in the vehicle if, let's say, the bodies were wrapped up in these drop cloths and they were secured.
By the end of March 10th, with so much circumstantial evidence now pointing to Dennis Gerwing, investigators are ready to publicly name him as a person of interest in the Calverts disappearance. The announcement will be made on the next day, March 11th, the same day a prayer vigil is planned for the Calverts. Coming up, an emotional gathering of the Calverts family and friends.
To see that vigil come together, I was crying pretty hard.
But then, shocking news.
It started unraveling at that point, like there's some serious stuff going on here.
March 11th, 2008. 8 days after Liz and John Calvert mysteriously vanished, family and friends are planning a candlelight vigil for later in the day. But this morning, the Beaufort County Sheriff has plans of his own to make an announcement about the last known person to see the Calverts, their former accountant, Dennis Gerwing.
We were doing a press release indicating that Dennis Gerwing was a person of interest.
How will Gerwing respond? The sheriff's about to find out. In the hours before the Calverts prayer vigil, Hilton Head Emergency Dispatch gets a 911 call from Dennis Gerwing's attorney. He's been trying to get in touch with his client since the day before, and Gerwing isn't answering.
Dennis was living in a townhome or a condo, if you will, because his home was being cleaned because we had done a thorough search with a search warrant of his home. And so he was staying in one of the units that he manages while that was being done.
Firefighters gain entry, and investigators are shocked by a grisly scene. Gerwing had locked himself in the bathroom of the master suite.
It was pretty violent. There was a lot of blood on the walls, on the floors, sinks and bathtub.
There was 360 degrees of blood in that bathroom.
In the tub, Dennis Gerwing's naked body lies lifeless, riddled with knife wounds.
Penetrating his thighs, his legs, his wrist, his neck, his throat.
As forensic technicians process the crime scene, darkness falls at Harbortown, and a candlelight vigil honoring Liz and John Calvert is held.
It was under the Liberty Oak tree, which is very special to John and Liz. Not only did they invest in it, personally, but John actually asked Liz to marry him here.
To see that vigil come together, I was crying pretty hard, and I got a phone call at the vigil that, you know, the former accountant had committed suicide. And that just doesn't, you know, set up a good scenario for what really had happened to Liz and John.
Police ruled Dennis Gerwing's death as suicide, based on the weapon, a bloody steak knife found sitting next to Gerwing's right hand, a handwritten note next to the bathroom sink, and handwriting scrawled on a bedsheet in the adjoining bedroom.
Of course, your hopes are up that the notes are going to include something that's going to lead us in the right direction. But it gave us nothing. But it did tell us something, though, that Dennis Gerwing knew that he was a person of interest. He was a suspect in John and Liz's missing. He never took an opportunity to say, I had nothing to do with, with the missing couple. He did, in fact, in the suicide note, claim that everything that happened at SPC.
SPC is Sea Pines Center, the office complex where the Calverts last met with Dennis Gerwing. Police searched the club group there again, for a third time, and still cannot find a speck of evidence or trace of blood. But another forensic investigation, and Gerwing's club group partner, do provide some answers.
Dennis Gerwing discussed with his partner the day before the suicide a forensic audit.
The audit is quite revealing. It shows that Gerwing embezzled about $2.1 million from his clients. He took over $200,000 from the Calverts alone, and Liz Calvert was apparently onto it.
Liz was very smart, and I think she started seeing some signs of this as much as 6 months prior, and she wasn't gonna let it go.
An email Dennis Gerwing wrote to a friend spells out his feelings about Elizabeth Calvert.
He referred to her as a viper. They didn't get along, and she had discovered some financial issues with their accounts and made Dennis uncomfortable. I mean, he knew then that it wouldn't take long for her to figure out that there was some money issues here.
Elizabeth was tough. And she was on to Dennis Gerwing. She was on to Dennis Gerwing, and it scared Dennis Gerwing. I don't think there's any question about it. He knew that he would be going to prison.
Even if Gerwing were alive today, police still lack enough evidence to actually implicate him in Liz and John Calvert's disappearance. Analysis of that soil found on his kitchen floor fails to geographically pinpoint a possible burial site. And investigators still can't figure out Gerwing's whereabouts after he was seen pacing on closed-circuit television near his office the night of March 3rd, the same night the Calverts went missing. Today, rumors abound about what really happened to Dennis Gerwing and to the Calverts.
When we're talking about Dennis Gerwing, there are folks who believe he did not take his own life. Then there are people who have their own theories about the Calverts. Maybe the witness protection program, that they're out just enjoying life somewhere else and they're getting away. Then there are folks who think Dennis Gerwing killed them.
The sheriff's office says there was never any reason to believe the Calverts were placed into witness protection. But to be sure, they check with federal authorities, who confirm there's no basis for the theory.
We know that their credit cards haven't been used. Their bank accounts haven't been accessed. We have both of their passports. You know, their cell phones haven't been recovered. Their cell phones haven't been turned on.
After a $65,000 reward for clues went unclaimed, the money is now being donated to college scholarship funds in the Calverts' names. But police still search for anyone with information or a connection to the Calverts' disappearance.
We're hopeful that we will someday get a phone call or something that will bring closure to this investigation, because the family members obviously highly upset with no closure. I can't imagine their anxiety.
On October 22nd, 2009, a court order declares the Calverts legally deceased, a formality that allows their business, Harbortown, now managed by Liz's brother David, to continue running. But it's little comfort for friends and family.
I think for me, the hardest part is just not having John and Liz here. That the working with them, the leadership, the guidance, they were close to family to us.
Liz was a great friend. I didn't realize how much I missed our conversations until they ended. And I still have her phone number in my phone. I can't quite erase it.
I keep imagining, you're going to get that call one day, saying, hey, we found him. But it could also be the other end where you live the rest of your life and you don't know where they are. And I think that's not right. Once somebody harms your family, you're going to have to live with it.
April Pitzer disappeared on Monday, June 28, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. April Pitzer's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. A former model and mother of two plans a homecoming after 6 months in the Mojave Desert.
She had real high hopes and she was so excited.
She wanted to go see her kids. It was time for her to leave.
But she never makes it home.
I said, something has happened to April. April's gone. They've done something with her.
A harrowing tale begins to unfold.
A person made the comment that I know where she's at. She's in a hole.
If somebody gets rid of somebody out here in the desert, it's rare they're ever found.
It's a windy, unforgiving evening in the Mojave Desert in May 2004. 30-year-old April Beth Pitzer aimlessly wanders along old Route 66 in Newberry Springs, California. The young mother of two from Texas, who once aspired to be a model, is now homeless, hungry, and defeated. She wonders how life has come to this. Just 4 years earlier in Fort Worth, Texas, April Pitzer was living the life that dreams are made of.
Chase loved April. He loved her very much, and she loved him. April's father-in-law bought him a beautiful new home, and they had it all.
Married to Chase Pitzer and about to give birth to their first little girl, April's life is heading in the right direction. Then comes a knock on her door that changes everything.
The DEA showed up at her residence in Fort Worth and told her she was coming back to Arkansas to be a federal witness.
When April was 22 and living in Arkansas, she was arrested for driving while intoxicated. She agreed to become a drug informant rather than face DWI charges. Now, 6 years later, she is called upon to testify. With the help of April's testimony, dozens of convictions are made against major players in a methamphetamine drug ring.
And she was never the same. She looked over her shoulder everywhere she went. Then she had Bradley.
The birth of her second daughter brings April renewed happiness. But before long, the paranoia begins again.
She wouldn't even let her girls sleep in their rooms because she was scared somebody was going to come through the windows and kill them. And all of this paranoia started really taking its toll on her marriage itself.
To subdue her fears, April starts drinking and doing drugs.
Her and Chase had grown very distant. It's hard on me to understand all this fear, this paranoia, people going to kill her. But I was her mom, and I couldn't give up on her.
April has a breakdown and is diagnosed as being bipolar.
April just crumbled, you know? They'd put her on this medication, that medication. She was so beautiful, and then she just started getting thin, and it was just so sad.
With her marriage all but over, April takes her 2 girls and moves into an apartment.
She took a job at this little Shamrock up the road from where she and Chase lived. The girls had never been away from her. She was hands-on mom all the time.
Just when she thinks life can't get any worse, April's in-laws gain custody of her children.
She went home one day to get some more stuff, and the children were taken from her because she was bipolar. They thought she needed a break.
Separated from her children, April starts socializing with a different crowd.
I met April back sometime in Texas. I was at a friend's house, and we were having a little social gathering.
John Lopez is a truck driver from California who has been staying in Texas with relatives. When John and April meet, the two seem to hit it off.
They decided to go out just to, mingle and have a few drinks and have a good time.
He paid April the attention that she felt she wasn't getting. John came into her life at a time when she needed to feel loved.
Just a few months later, John starts making plans to leave Texas and go back west.
I asked her if she wanted to come out to California and have a different view of the world, And she decided to come out with me.
April's thinking was, well, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And if I put distance between me and Chase and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they'll realize that they need me to take care of these babies.
It's December 2003, and April Pitzer leaves Texas temporarily to clear her head.
And everything was going to be fine, and she's going to have her little girls back and her husband, her beautiful home, and her beautiful life. But it didn't end up like that at all.
The Mojave Desert is at once enticing and dangerous. Home to the mines of the California Gold Rush, explorers and travelers alike have gravitated to the desert for decades in the hopes of realizing dreams at any cost. But once there, April realizes opportunities for an outsider are scarce.
There's a lot of really good people who lived out here their entire lives, but for those people who are moving out here trying to get away from the city, there's not a whole lot of work out here.
With so much space and little opportunity for legitimate employment, the desert can be a playground for criminal activity.
Barstow, California is known for methamphetamine capital of the world, so they say. I would say yes, there's some drugs that are floating around in the area. I try to warn her that there's certain places that you can go to that are okay, and then there's other places that you have to watch what you're doing out there.
As it turns out, April is drawn to the very crowd John warns her about. One night, party in the desert outside of Barstow, April meets a man who will change the course of her life. There's an instant and intense attraction.
This person on the dirt bike said, I've got 20 acres, we've got some trailer homes, and you can come home with me, and you'll have a place to live.
With a new man on the scene, April and John's relationship goes sour. Despite his warnings, April moves to a desert community about 20 miles east of Barstow. The world April is about to enter is a far cry from the life she's left behind.
They didn't even have electricity in that house where she was at. I didn't know.
Coming up, when April Pitzer hits rock bottom, she reaches out for help. But is it too late? When April Pitzer's marriage fails and she loses custody of her children, she leaves Texas and takes a trip out to the California desert to regroup. But a few months after her arrival, April is introduced to an underworld of drug dealers and addicts. Steve Wilkinson remembers when April arrived outside of Barstow in late January 2004.
The house I lived up in was right up on the road. She was staying back there with her boyfriend.
A lot of people with criminal records living out there.
Her boyfriend and his brother had been arrested quite a bit. I'd been arrested a few times for drug cases, so there was a lot of activity.
As a loving mother of two from out of town, April stands out among her new group of friends.
She had that southern accent, you know, a little different, you know, not the normal for out here.
3 months go by, and April's situation is getting increasingly precarious. When she and her new boyfriend break up, April has nowhere to go. With no job and no money, April lives day to day, never knowing where she will eat or who will offer her a bed for the night. She has been lying to her mother, Gloria Denton, about her life out in California.
I didn't know April was homeless and living from place to place. I thought that she had a job and everything was okay.
But life is far from okay for April Pitzer. The desert is an ocean separating her from her children. She is depressed and doesn't know where to turn.
She started walking down National Trails Highway.
A man in a truck passes by and sees April in distress. He pulls over and asks if she needs help.
And she just lost it, started crying, and told him her troubles, and he said, I'm taking you home to my mama.
April accepts the kind gesture and goes with the man to meet his sick, elderly mother, Barbara Killebrew. They become friends instantly. Both are lonely and seeking companionship.
April was a caregiver. That's all she ever did, you know? I mean, she took care of people.
Taking care of Barbara reminds April of the life she left behind, one she desperately wants to get back to.
Barbara told her, your mama needs to know the truth. And April called me, and it was the hardest phone call I ever took.
April tells her mother about the dark road she has traveled.
I was shocked. And she said, Mama, I just didn't want you to worry. She said, I was just so ashamed, you know?
April also says she wants to come home. It's early June 2004, and Gloria Denton immediately starts making plans for her daughter April's return to her hometown in the hills of Clarksville, Arkansas. But April isn't quite ready.
Her mom seemed to think that she wanted to come home. She was ready to. She just hadn't made that commitment that she was going to do it.
While days are spent with Barbara, April still needs a place to stay at night. Unfortunately, Barbara doesn't have an extra bedroom for her at the house. For shelter, she must rely on the kindness of other friends in Newberry Springs.
She'd been staying at my house maybe a couple of weeks or something like that, but she wanted to go see her kids, and that was a good thing for her to go do. You know, it was time for her to leave.
But according to Gloria Denton, her daughter stopped staying at Steve's house not because the timing is right, but because she is scared.
She called me and told me that she ran into this person out there.
In a strange twist of fate, the past has finally caught up with April Pitzer.
She met a girl out here and found out that she knew who she was from back east, because I guess April was a federal informant back there. And it was on that case that this girl's husband went to prison.
There was the girl and her husband that she testified against in the state of Arkansas 7 years later. How's that happen?
According to Steve, when April realizes who this woman is, she overreacts, calling too much attention to her past as a drug informant. After all, many of her new friends have made their careers off the drug trade.
She kept wanting to apologize and say how sorry she was, but the girl didn't want nothing to do with her. Just leave me alone, you know, go away, it's over.
All the years of fear and paranoia are finally substantiated.
I said, oh my God, April, you gotta get out of there. I said, you're gonna die.
Steve Wilkinson was in federal prison on drug charges at the time of those convictions. He remembers the case that April testified in that broke up a major drug ring.
32 people went to federal prison over it. There was chemicals being bought back east, brought out to California for the manufacture of methamphetamine. There were a lot of drugs being sold back there from out here. A lot of people got caught up in it.
Steve is baffled that the woman whose testimony helped make the convictions ends up in his home in California.
That's just like the needle in the haystack. How she could ever land in a place like this and end up in a circle of the people that were involved in that case was real strange.
Gloria wants to wire April money for a bus ticket immediately, but April tells her to wait.
I was moving from Texas to Clarksville during that time. She said, Mama, when you bring all your stuff back from Texas, I'll come to Arkansas, and that way I can help you unpack. I said, okay.
In the meantime, she persuades April to go somewhere safe.
I said, April, is there somebody that you trust where you can stay? And she said, Uncle Chuck.
Chuck Hollister is a quiet, middle-aged man, well known for taking in people who are down on their luck. Over the last few months, April had occasionally stayed at his house off Old Route 66 in Newberry Springs.
She said he's got a nice house and everything, and he's got reliable transportation, and I can go there. I said, okay.
I took her out on Wednesday and dropped her off in Newberry Springs at Chuck's house.
April is just days away from returning to her mother and a place where she will finally feel safe.
She had real high hopes, and she was so excited, you know, oh, Mom, I'm coming home, I'm coming home.
But 1 week later, when Gloria tries to reach her daughter in Newberry Springs, April is nowhere to be found.
I started calling Chuck, because that was the only number I had. And it rang, it rang, it rang, it rang, it rang. Never could get him, never could get him.
Coming up, police track down a witness who thinks she knows what happened to April. What they learn is chilling. Just when April Pitzer comes clean and asks her mother for help to get back home, a chance encounter from the past causes her to fear for her life. Now, instead of planning a homecoming celebration, April's mother, Gloria, is desperately trying to locate her daughter's whereabouts. And the man April has been staying with, Chuck Hollister, has not been answering his phone.
Tried to call her. Couldn't get her. And on July the 4th, I finally got a call.
April's friend, Barbara Killebrew, had been in the hospital. One of the first things she does when she gets home is phone Gloria to check on April.
Barbara called me and she's like, "How's it feel to have your baby back?" I said, "Barbara, April's not home."
As she hears those words, Gloria begins to fear the worst.
I said, "Barbara, something's happened to April. Who was the last person with her?" And she said, Chuck Hollister. He brought her out here to get her stuff.
He had taken her to several friends' house. He took her to Barbara's house. She was telling everybody goodbye. She had packed her stuff, and her stuff was ready to go.
It's been 8 days since April was last seen. Gloria is frantic and tries to file a missing persons report.
I called San Bernardino County. They wouldn't let me report her missing. They said she just had a bad marriage, lost her kids. April's not missing, she just doesn't want to be found. And I'm like, you don't know my daughter.
Gloria and April have a special bond as mother and daughter.
Everybody thought we were sisters, you know. She was my friend, she was my daughter, she was my everything.
When April was just 3, Gloria Denton lost custody of her 2 children and relatives.
I was 19 years old, and they thought I was too young to be a mother.
For the next 15 years, Gloria fought relentlessly to get her children back. Refusing to lose touch, Gloria and April maintained a close relationship over the years.
Her cards, they tell the story. She loved me very much, and I loved her.
When April is 17, she finally moves home to be with her mother.
We were inseparable, absolutely inseparable, and April said it so well. She's like, "Mama, now we have forever, and nobody can ever separate us again."
Now, in June 2004, Gloria fears she's losing April once again. Days pass, and still no sign of her daughter, and no word from Chuck Hollister.
On July the 16th, I said, "Barbara, you've got to make a report. Something has happened to April. April's gone." I said, "They've done something with her."
This time, police take the report. Then, just 3 days later, Gloria finally gets the call she has been anxiously awaiting. It's from Chuck Hollister.
And finally, he called me back, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I've not been in touch with you." He goes, "I've been moving a friend to Oregon." And I said, "Chuck, where's April?"
Monday morning, he got up to go to work. April was still there. He came home, and April was gone, and he hadn't seen her since. He thought somebody gave her a ride to a bus stop, and she had gone home.
Chuck tells Gloria about April's state of mind the Sunday night before she goes missing.
She had the pictures of her girls out on the counter, and she was crying. She held their pictures up to her heart and said, "I'm going home, I'm going home."
But what Chuck tells Gloria next is very disturbing.
Chuck said that a couple of her bags were still there on the property.
"Oh, it's all here." He said, "There's her little white suitcase, there's her backpack."
Why would April have left all her belongings behind if she was en route to Arkansas? When a month passes, and there's still no word from April. Investigators begin to search the area.
Missing person flyers were made up and posted throughout Barstow, Daggett, Yermo, Newberry Springs.
The strategy works. On September 9th, 2004, a Barstow City transportation employee alerts police to a comment from a bus rider.
A person getting on a local transit bus, seeing the flyer at the bus station, made mention that she knew that person, knew April, and made the comment that, "I know where she's at, she's in a hole."
It's an ominous, disturbing clue. Police track down the witness for further questioning.
She denied saying that she was in a hole, but she did tell me that she was at a party, and somebody at the party, she couldn't remember who, said that April was dead and in a mine shaft.
Detectives have a lead at last. But the fact that there are over 20,000 mines in San Bernardino County alone is daunting. Deputy Coroner and Missing Persons Coordinator David Van Norman is all too familiar with the area in question.
The desert is vast, and it really doesn't help to say that somebody might have been placed into a mine in light of the fact that there are literally thousands and thousands of mines.
We're between Nevada state line, a major freeway into Vegas off the 15 freeway. We're not that far from LA.
If somebody gets rid of somebody out here in the desert, it's rare they're ever found.
We seem to be a dumping ground sometimes.
But it's not just the witness's testimony that leads investigators to believe April has been killed and buried in the desert. That same week, in early September, another piece of evidence comes to light, this time from a truck stop 800 miles away in a neighboring state.
A note was written up in Oregon at a truck stop, men's bathroom wall, that said, "Looking for missing girl from Arkansas, 3 miles east of Barstow, I-15 freeway." From Barstow to the Calico exit, ground search was conducted. And again, that's an area where there's hundreds of mine shafts. We had nothing more to go on than that.
Meanwhile, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department obtains surveillance video at the truck stop that captures everyone going into and coming out of the men's bathroom.
It's 24-hour live video, and we have it from June all the way through to the day it was found in September.
In the end, neither the ground searches nor the surveillance video provides any further insight into April's case.
No evidence was found. That doesn't mean that the rumor isn't true.
Coming up, could cryptic notes etched in an old miner's shack hold the answers to April's disappearance? Get more Disappeared online at investigation.discovery.com. It's mid-September, and the search for April Beth Pitzer is heating up. But everyone fears the worst. First, a witness overhears that April's body is in a desert mine, and then a message found in a truck stop bathroom reveals the missing woman from Arkansas is close to Barstow, California, off the I-15. Police and April's mother in Arkansas have begun tracking people down who knew April, desperate for any clues that can explain her disappearance on June 28th.
April didn't have a phone of her own. Wherever she went, she'd call me collect. I started calling all the phone numbers back, and one person would tell me a little more and a little more and a little more.
Gloria wanted to believe her daughter is still alive, but that hope is fading. She hears many theories about where her daughter's body is, but there is one location that keeps coming up: the mines of Ludlow. It turns out that Chuck Hollister, the last person known to have seen April alive, has a close friend named Dan, who claims to own a mine out in Ludlow called the Red Dog Mine.
Chuck and him mine, they made jewelry and stuff.
Dan and Chuck are known rock hounds. They spend a lot of their time together working the Red Dog Mine, about 30 miles east of Barstow.
Dan thought he was going to get rich. The town of Ludlow was part of the Mother Lode during the California Gold Rush.
This was an old mining area back in the late 1800s, and there were some old shacks out there that he'd write his name on, claim that the shacks were his.
Dan often stays out at the Red Dog Mine for days on end. He's a hermit who likes to keep to himself.
He's got a sign on the front, well, handwritten. It says, "If you can read this, then you need to go have a nice day someplace else. Dan."
Dan had started working in this mine back in the 70s. At the very bottom of it, which is about 200 feet deep, he had wrote Dan 1979.
Dan had been around a long time. When he was younger, he was one of the guys that, and you wouldn't want to cross.
The connection between the rumor that April's body might be found deep in a Ludlow mine and the fact that Dan worked the Red Dog Mine in Ludlow is enough for police to investigate further. First, they try to question Dan.
I went by his house numerous occasions. His vehicle would be there. I'd knock on the door, he wouldn't answer. I would leave my business card. I left missing person flyers asking him to contact me.
Eventually, Dan does talk to the police, but says he knows nothing about April Pitzer's whereabouts. Without gaining any valuable information from Dan, investigators decide to go out to Ludlow and search the area. They begin at the dilapidated mining shacks Dan is rumored to have occupied, and are shocked at what they find.
There was some writing, strange writing on the walls inside. Things about him being a sniper in Vietnam, things about trespassing on his property.
What investigators tell Gloria is bone-chilling.
One of the sayings where 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead. Another one was, if you want to disappear, I can help you. It'll bug me forever because I might have seen her to her doom.
If Dan did actually write these things, was he referring to April's disappearance? Perhaps the Red Dog Mine itself will hold the answers.
Barstow Search and Rescue Team went out there. They also eventually took cadaver dogs out there, and they searched the mine from top to bottom.
But after 2 days with the cadaver dog, police are confident April's body is not hidden there. There are no clues to indicate April had ever been to the mines. Could all this talk about Dan and the Red Dog Mine be just desert folklore?
Dan continued denying any knowledge of anything about April. He knew her. He didn't know what happened to her. He claimed he didn't do any harm to her.
The search for April is at a standstill. Then, a new and disturbing clue surfaces. In January of 2005, a woman recognizes April from a missing persons poster and realizes this was the same woman who worked for her in June of 2004, likely the same time she was staying with Chuck Hollister. Andre Pruitt, owner of the famous Baghdad Cafe in Newberry Springs, remembers well the day April came into the restaurant.
April came in and asked me for a job, said she needed to have something to do. She said she lived over on one of those dirt roads back there.
Chuck Hollister's house on Caspian Road is just a few blocks from the restaurant.
And I said, well, we're really not very busy, but I can let you work a few days a week. And then she came back the next day.
On the first day of her job as a waitress, April's appearance makes a lasting impression on Andre.
She looked very nice. She had her hair up. She had on a white blouse and a black skirt, like she was really going to work somewhere. Nice.
At first, April seemed like a good fit at the Baghdad Cafe.
She was very sweet and nice to the customers. I said, well, you know, she'll work out.
Then, on the second day of her new job, what Andre believes to be the days leading up to April's disappearance, she could tell things were not right. April looked like she had been beaten.
She looked like somebody hit her in her eye because it was blood. I don't know who she was really involved with, but I knew that she was upset the day that I talked to her. I knew she needed to get out of here for whatever the reason. She looked really confused.
The mystery remains. Who was April scared of, and why? This was the same time period when April planned on returning home. Could this be the day she went missing?
That was the last day that I saw her. She didn't come back.
Coming up, on his deathbed, Dan leaves one last cryptic message in the search for April. Will it lead investigators to her remains? 6 months after April Pitzer is last seen in Newberry Springs, California, her mother and police have tried to piece together what might have happened to her. Following 2 disturbing leads, investigators search the Red Dog mine for her body. When the deputy coroner learns of April's case and hears the rumor that she could be hidden in a mine, he calls a friend for help.
I assisted by making contact with a local desert lore historian.
He knows that desert like the palm of his hand, and he had been called to keep his eyes out for April.
Finally, a year and a half after April went missing, there's a break in the case. In late December of 2005, while leading a tour group through the old mines of Ludlow, the historian stumbles upon what will prove to be vital evidence.
He went in one of the old abandoned shacks and he seen women's clothing and he said, stop. He said, we gotta leave here.
Hoping to be able to identify the clothes as April's, Gloria is on the first plane out to San Bernardino County in California. This is the first time Gloria Denton will confront the people and places associated with her missing daughter.
I just dropped to my knees when I got out there and I seen it. Just vast sand, hills, desert, shacks.
Gloria remembers how April described the desert in one of their last conversations.
She said, Mom, it's a dog-eat-dog world out here. You do what you can to survive. And when I got out there, I knew what she meant.
The next morning, Gloria accompanies the search team to the area where the clothes were found. They head out to a mine called the Indian Queen, several miles beyond the Red Dog mine, which police searched 1 year ago. When they arrive, April's mother ventures out to scan the premises for any signs of her daughter. It doesn't take her long.
The first thing I seen was a red and black flannel shirt that I sent her.
Gloria sadly remembers the night April called her, asking for help.
She didn't have any clothes, she didn't have anything. She said, Mom, it's cold out here. You know, can you send me a coat, something flannel? So I fixed her up a couple boxes of clothes.
April told her mother how touched she had been to receive the care package.
She held them up to her and smelled them, and that she went in the bedroom and closed the door and just cried and cried because she could smell me and she knew where they came from.
After a thorough search, investigators feel confident April is not at the Indian Queen. But April's mother does not want to give up. Although the Red Dog Mine was searched by police 1 year ago, Gloria wants to see it for herself. She asks the coroner, David Van Norman, to take her there. She shudders at what she finds.
When I pulled up, the first thing that I seen was the white suitcase that Barbara Killebrew gave April. It was just a flapping in the wind.
This is the same suitcase Chuck claimed April left behind at his house. It was not here when police searched the Red Dog Mine in December of 2005. Now, 1 year later, April's clothes are scattered between the Indian Queen and Red Dog Mines. The question persists. How and why did these items get from Chuck's house in Newberry Springs to the mines of Ludlow, 30 miles away?
I don't know how the clothing that Gloria says was her daughter's ended up in the desert, if it was the same clothes that was at Chuck's house.
Police and Gloria may never know the truth. Chuck Hollister is very sick with cancer. Detective Steve Pennington interrogates him one last time.
I asked him, if he had done this, if it was something that he wanted to clear his conscience, and he flat out denied any involvement in her disappearance.
As for the clothes that were found in the desert, they failed to provide any forensic value.
The hot of the desert sun and sometimes the cold of a desert winter will destroy any evidence that could be analyzed from that.
Soon after, Chuck Hollister passes away. As time progresses, the case of April Pitzer gets increasingly complicated and enigmatic.
There's been so many rumors that have floated around out here. We don't want to hear any more rumors. We want to know what somebody actually knows.
At first, I was real hopeful, and you get people telling you all these different things. I finally threw my hands up, and I'm like, look, April didn't die that many times. She wasn't killed that many ways, and she can't be that many places.
Then, in 2009, when Gloria is out in California for yet another search, she hears through the grapevine that Dan, the man who might hold the clues to her daughter's disappearance, is sick and in the intensive care unit.
I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go see this man. He can't die. I could never rest if I'd been out here and I don't go talk to him.
With April's missing person picture on her t-shirt, Gloria Denton confronts the man she believes is somehow involved in her daughter's disappearance.
And he looked at me and I said, Dan, I'm Gloria, I'm April's mom. And I kept on waiting on that hate to come over me, and it just never came.
Dan and Gloria talk for over an hour. His kindness makes Gloria feel as though she has been wrong all along about his role in April's death.
I started crying, and he cried with me. And, he took my hand, and he said, April was a sweetheart, Gloria, and whoever killed that girl needs to be brought to justice.
Then, just days later, before dying, Dan confesses to friends that he knows more about April's disappearance than he let on.
Dan said when he was dying, that girl, April Pitzer, said her mom's in the right place. She's just not been far enough.
I believe when he said we were looking in the right place, he was referring to his mine.
In March 2010, a team of volunteer mine enthusiasts take Dan's words seriously. They have the capabilities of rappelling 3,000 feet deep into mines. If April is farther down in the Red Dog mine, they will find her.
I copy you, Mike. I'm gonna start heading down.
Okay.
On rope! Clear.
Do you want to give us an update of what you're seeing?
It's a clean bottom. There's no debris. It's just a clean bottom.
Once again, the search reveals nothing new.
I can't tell you the nightmares that I've had that April was in Red Dog Mine. No matter how many people went down there, how many times, I could never get that vision out of my mind. But this time I went, and now I know. You know, she's not down there.
In the 6 years since April went missing, there have been dozens of searches, and not one has gathered a shred of new evidence. Yet investigators and a team of dedicated volunteers persist, largely because of April's mother's tenacity.
So many people don't report their loved ones missing as adults because, well, they're not worthy. That's a prostitute, that's an alcoholic, that's a drug addict, you know. I don't care what they are lives. They have names.
Gloria believes her daughter deserves justice and to be remembered as she was in life before her troubles began.
April was beautiful, full of life. She had a beautiful body, a beautiful soul, a beautiful face, and a heart of gold. Everybody loved her. I so believe she's here. You know, I have peace that April's with the Lord. And one thing for sure, nobody can hurt her, nobody can take her from me, and she doesn't have to be afraid. I just wished our time together would have been different. But it'll be okay, because we'll do it again. I wish you'd just come running up over the horizon. Say, Mama.
Jeremy Ted Alex disappeared on Saturday, April 24th, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Jeremy Alex's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. 28-year-old Jeremy Alex had a carefree approach to life.
He worked to live. He didn't live to work.
As a teen, he followed the Grateful Dead around the country.
He was definitely charismatic and had a sense of humor, and he had that draw.
But just before he disappears, Jeremy is discovered in a terrified state.
Very frightened, saying that people were threatening to hurt him, bad guys were trying to hurt him.
When extensive searches fail to find him, his family is at a loss.
We were questioning whether he was actually lost in the woods or if somebody had done something to him.
They suspect someone is hiding the truth.
And I truly believe that some of those people did know, never came forward.
Is Jeremy the victim of misadventure or foul play?
I've already played that worst case scenario in my head multiple ways.
To his family and friends, Jeremy Alex is known as a free spirit who loves music, playing chess, and the great outdoors near his home in rural Belfast, Maine.
Jeremy was a minimalist, and up in Belfast, that's really the way of life. It's a town where all the hippies moved to, and that's just their mantra up there. Jeremy's lived in places that had outhouses and no bathrooms, so growing up in Belfast, he just really always liked the juxtaposition of the ocean and the forest and the woods and the mountains.
In April of 2004, Jeremy's father and stepmother, Ted and Susan Alex, who live in New Hampshire, are making plans to visit Jeremy in Maine and take him out for a belated birthday celebration.
It was his 28th birthday. Ted and I didn't always get up to Belfast as much as we would like, so we called him and left him a kind of a funny message and told him that we would be coming up and that we wanted to take him out.
Once a rebellious teenager, in recent years, Jeremy has rebuilt strong connections with his family.
I saw changes for the positive. He had a share of issues growing up. His parents divorced, he had a stepfather, and I was his stepmother. And, Jeremy was angry during his teenage years, but during his 20s, Jeremy really started to come around.
Ted is used to Jeremy going his own way. He knows his son has a bit of gypsy in his soul.
Jeremy was a free spirit kid, very intelligent, kind of earthy, did what he wanted to do. He lived, different places in Maine. Also, he lived in California. He traveled around.
Jeremy's stepmother, Susan, came to love Jeremy like a son after she married his dad when Jeremy was 6 years old.
One of the driving pleasures and forces in Jeremy's life is music. He has cases full of CDs that he burned, and one of the bands that he loved was the Grateful Dead. When he was around 17 or 18, he started following the Dead. And for about 2 years, he basically went cross-country in a van following the Dead. And he made his living selling grilled cheese sandwiches out of the back of the van, so Ted and I would always joke that we knew he wouldn't starve to death because he had grilled cheese.
Kathy Langelier is one of Jeremy's closest and oldest friends.
He was extremely welcoming, really kind. Right away from when he first met me, I felt really at ease with him, and he had these great smiling eyes. We both loved music, so that was one thing that we instantly clicked with, the Grateful Dead and going to shows, so we had that in common. We had environmental concerns that were similar, and our eyes were big, and we wanted to make changes and in our own little ways.
As a child, Jeremy spent his summers with Ted and Susan, but lived most of the year with his mother in Belfast, Maine, a picturesque town of 6,000 plus people on Penobscot Bay. As an adult, it became his home base, the place he always returned to.
I think Jeremy did odd jobs, whatever it took to make a living up in Maine, and I think it's very difficult to make a living up in Maine.
Jeremy was the kind of kid, and I admired this about him. He worked to live. He didn't live to work. So he didn't make a lot of money, but he made enough money to live, and his needs were very simple.
Only 5 feet 7 inches tall, Jeremy is a short guy. Still, his former girlfriend, Suzanne Forkerin, says he could light up a room.
He has an exuberant personality, and, instantly people are attracted and just want to hang out with him because he was fun.
But in the spring of 2004, some of his friends are growing concerned about him. Something seems to be altering his normally cheerful personality.
He definitely was not acting himself. He was paranoid, and I believe he was throwing out accusations, false accusations, because of this paranoia. That, of course, frustrated friends and left a lot of confusion, and he was starting to draw away from people, and he was mistrusting people.
Early on Monday morning, April 26th, Jeremy's dad, Ted Alex, turns his cell phone on. There's a message from Jeremy's phone, but it isn't from Jeremy. It's from the Belfast police.
They said that they had found Jeremy's cell phone, his keys, his van, and they were in the process of searching for him. When they found his cell phone, they basically saw Dad, called my number, left me a message.
Ted and Susan are mystified. They know their son is about to move into a new house in Northport, a village just outside of Belfast, with his girlfriend Suzanne. Jeremy's stepmother calls her right away.
It was probably about 7 a.m. She said the Belfast Police Department called. She said that they have his cell phone and they had found his van, and they won't tell her anymore.
Suzanne got upset about it, and she seemed more upset than I was, which sort of upset me, and she was going to go over to the police station when we hung up, which she did.
Suzanne has reason to be upset. She knows something Ted and Susan do not. Suzanne last saw Jeremy Saturday morning, 2 days earlier.
I thought he was gonna pop a vein right then because he was huffing, puffing, and he wasn't in his right mind. He was disoriented and saying the bad guys were after him. He was like, the bad guys are after me.
Jeremy has been staying at their new house in Northport, getting it ready for the two of them to move into. On her way to the police station, Suzanne stops there. It is evident that Jeremy made it back there after his outburst on Saturday morning.
Well, when I got to the house, the door was open with the keys in the lock, and all the furniture he had moved was already in the house.
But there is no sign of Jeremy.
I hurried into Belfast to talk to the police, see what's going on, and when I got there, they told me nobody had seen him since Saturday afternoon. And it's like white just washes over you, and you're just, it's like weird. It's a weird feeling.
Coming up, an encounter with a desperate and disturbed Jeremy.
He was, according to the witnesses, hallucinating, in a panic, not acting normal, very frightened.
On Sunday, April 25th, 2004, police investigate an unlocked van parked in a small, secluded area of Northport, Maine. They find Jeremy Alex's cell phone, registration, and keys inside. They see a message on the phone from Ted Alex, Jeremy's father, and call him. Ted and his wife Susan immediately leave for Northport, Maine.
At first, we just thought, he was lost in the woods. I mean, obviously he had disappeared, but, maybe he had just got lost in the woods up there.
It was shocking, but at the same time, you don't really think anything horrific at that point. You just think something's not right, and you drive up hoping that, it's some sort of misunderstanding.
Meanwhile, Jeremy's girlfriend, Suzanne Forkerin, thinks back over events of the last few days. Events Jeremy's parents know nothing about. Jeremy and Suzanne have been together for more than 3 years. They met through mutual friends in Belfast, and she later followed him to a landscaping job in New York State.
I felt a draw to him and somehow knew before that we were going to be together.
There was this really strong bond between the two of them, and I think a lot of it had to do with that they were such good friends. It was a beautiful evolution to watch their relationship.
At first, Suzanne is attracted to the way Jeremy treats people and that he is a straight-up guy.
He wasn't smoking cigarettes, he wasn't drinking, he wasn't smoking. And, you know, to me, I was like, wow, that's cool, you know? He was straight edge almost.
But after they return to Maine, that changes. Belfast, like many rural communities, has problems with drugs. She discovers Jeremy is not immune to their attractions.
It was really weird because he wouldn't use all the time. Like every 6 months, he would go on like a weekend binge and I'll just keep it out of my face. I don't want to know.
Recently, she says, Jeremy's drug use has become more frequent. The last happy day Suzanne and Jeremy spend together is Thursday, April 22nd. They traveled to Sugarloaf Mountain in Jeremy's van.
And we went snowboarding. It was actually a really fun day. We all had fun. It was getting warm because it was in April, but there was still snow and slushy.
When they get home late in the afternoon, Jeremy seems eager to separate for the night, saying he is busy moving their things into their new house. But Suzanne is suspicious.
I imagined, okay, he's probably gonna go on a binge. And so I'm kind of stubborn. Like, once I get my feelings hurt, I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna call him. He's gonna do what he's gonna do. He can call me when he's done.
It is Saturday morning before she sees Jeremy again. When he arrives at her house, he is angry and accusatory.
He said, you and 2 other mutual friends of ours were outside my house last night with ski masks. And I'm all, what? That's when I realized it was cocaine, because he wasn't in his right mind. I could tell when he started talking like that. I just started crying, and I went into my room. You know, it was overwhelming. I'm sad, and I'm in there crying.
Just as abruptly, Suzanne says, Jeremy's manner changes, and he tries to comfort her and apologizes.
And he came into my room, and he's like, I'm really sorry. If you need to talk, you know where I'll be.
But when she joins him downstairs, as he loads up some furniture to take to their new house, he is distant and ignores her pleas to tell her what's wrong.
And I'm like, you know what? He needs to go home, sleep it off for a couple days, and I'll talk to him, you know, in a couple days, because this is not going anywhere.
It is 5:20 p.m., Saturday evening, hours after Suzanne last sees Jeremy, when a woman in a house off Pound Hill Road in Northport is startled by a young man erupting from the woods into her yard. She calls her husband over. The woman recognizes Jeremy Alex from his student days at Belfast High School, where she used to work.
She actually recognized Jeremy.
He looks agitated and is clutching cash in his hand.
The husband went over, saw that Jeremy was in a distressed condition.
He was, according to the witnesses, hallucinating, in a panic, not acting normal, very frightened.
Holly Edwards, editor of The Village Soup, was a reporter covering Jeremy's disappearance in 2004.
The circumstances as to how the eyewitnesses encountered Jeremy was the most unusual thing. He was saying that people were threatening to hurt him, bad guys were trying to hurt him.
He said that somebody was after him, someone was going to kill him. At that point, Jeremy offered the money that he had in his hand to the man if that person would let him go.
The couple doesn't know what to make of Jeremy's story. They try to calm him down, but when the woman goes to call 911, he panics.
He refused to stay with them, even though they were going to try to get him help, and then sort of took off in a panic, running again.
The couple reports the incident and identifies the young man to police as Jeremy Alex. As the weekend unfolds, nobody else sees or hears from Jeremy.
For 2 days, I just thought he was home sleeping it off, being stubborn and not calling him, and in all reality, he wasn't even at home. He was wherever he was.
On Sunday, the police go through Jeremy's van, parked near the house where he was last seen, and call Jeremy's father, Ted Alex. By the time Ted and Susan Alex arrive, it is Monday afternoon.
Everything was just as if, you know, he got out of the van and planned on coming back.
Jeremy's girlfriend, Suzanne, and some of his other friends are already there and have been searching the neighboring woods on their own.
The woods in Maine are kind of treacherous. It's not like you're just walking to a park. You're kind of stumbling and trying to get through the woods and not get scratched up. And so, we just yelled and looked and just hoping that we would see him or something.
It was such a bizarre scenario. It was confusing. There were certain key things that Jeremy wouldn't normally leave behind, and he had, and I'm not sure why he was there.
It's stressful. It's a stressful feeling. Worry. People are starting to worry.
Ted Alex is concerned, but he is also still optimistic that Jeremy will be found soon. Yet he knows that his son will not be able to survive many more of Maine's cold April nights without shelter. He is comforted, knowing that a full-scale search led by the Maine Warden Service, and including canine units and volunteers, is scheduled to take place the next day.
All the dogs and some of the searchers have tracking devices on them. They'll search a grid area. After the search, everything will be downloaded in a computer. They'll look at areas that might not have been searched, research them, and then go to the next grid area.
However, the extensive search fails to turn up any signs of Jeremy. Police accounts of his strange encounter with the couple in Northport have already reached his family and his girlfriend, Suzanne. Suzanne remembers Jeremy telling her that he thought people were after him. At the time, she thought his paranoia was due to drugs. But now, she begins to wonder.
Maybe there was somebody after him, because he mentioned it to me, he mentioned it to his friends, and he also mentioned it to the lady and the man that tried to help him at the end. Is that in his mind or from the drug use, or was it really happening?
Maybe what he was saying was in fact true, and it wasn't a hallucination. It was really what caught our interest and caught the community's interest.
News accounts of the search bring tips. A motorist tells police that a man resembling Jeremy crossed Route 1 on foot ahead of her on the Saturday evening he disappeared. When she passed him, she spied him in the rearview mirror, crossing back over the road again.
Where he was headed to is anyone's guess. Whether he was trying to get back home, whether he was oriented enough to try to get back home, it's hard to tell what he was thinking.
On Wednesday, April 28th, Jeremy's stepmother, now overcome with worry, vents her frustration on some of Jeremy's friends and acquaintances in the search party.
I literally said, if you know something, this is becoming life and death for Jeremy. If he's out there, it's cold, we don't have a lot of time. If he's not and something bad happened to him, you have to let us know. No one said anything.
Coming up, secrets are revealed.
I did try and hide the fact that there was drug use.
And suspicions grow.
We were questioning whether he was actually lost in the woods or if somebody had done something to him.
Jeremy Alex's strange disappearance makes headlines in Maine as soon as the official search begins.
In the beginning, they were absolutely just looking for someone who was in some sort of distress and then might have become hurt, lost in the woods. That part of Northport, there's not a lot of houses. They're few and far between, and so it would be very easy to get lost in the woods there. So I think it was just truly treated as a missing person, an unusual missing person in how it all came about, but really just as a missing person.
Ted Alex pursues every avenue he can to find his son.
He stepped in, and he's a kind of in charge type person, kind of like Jeremy.
I rented a helicopter for 12:30, and we're going to go up and look some more.
And he was doing everything that he could do because the time is critical, and it had already been 2 days before we even heard that he had disappeared.
Ted and Jeremy's stepmom stay in close touch with Suzanne since she knows the community and was one of the last people to see Jeremy.
Susie was our connection with these friends of Jeremy's. We were just fish out of water up there.
Suzanne obviously had an insight to days before the event, which we didn't have. She had spent time with Jeremy. She knew his mindset, what he had been doing, where he had been.
Originally, Suzanne had tried to cover up Jeremy's drug use.
I did try and hide the fact that there was drug use because I was like, if he's found, I don't want him to get in trouble, you know?
When she first learned from police that Jeremy was missing, she went to the house they were moving into in Northport and cleaned up, flushing drugs down the toilet. That information comes as a shock to Jeremy's family.
We knew that he smoked pot, but never, heroin and cocaine, and that's what Susie had found and flushed down the toilet was, heroin and cocaine.
Those drugs obviously took their toll on him. Paranoid is a word that we heard a lot about his behavior the last 2 or 3 days. There probably were people that he was dealing with that were, unscrupulous, not the kind of people that you want your kid hanging around with.
A friend of Jeremy's tells the Alexes that she spent Friday night, the night before Jeremy disappeared, doing drugs with him at the house in Northport.
They had stayed up most of Friday night. They were doing cocaine and they were doing heroin. She left Saturday morning. When she left, she, was concerned that Jeremy should stop.
I finally did tell the police, okay, I went to his house and I tried to get rid of the evidence of drug use. And it got really overwhelming, and one of the state police or state detectives, he had me outside and he was just questioning me, like, you need to tell me where he got his drugs. They could have a bullet in his head. And
it was a double-edged sword for the police department because, there were drugs involved and they needed to deal with that.
Once the police begin looking into the drug connection, Jeremy's family says many of his friends seem to shy away from speaking to them.
I think they all cared about Jeremy gone missing, but I think they had a hesitation when it came to giving information to the police.
Meanwhile, the efforts to find Jeremy continue. A second official search begins on May 2nd, 8 days after Jeremy was last seen. Friends cling to the hope that the wood-savvy Jeremy knows how to survive in the wild.
Jeremy was an extremely resourceful individual and clever, very clever. I think he could have survived, absolutely. Yes, I do.
he knew a lot about making fires. He could live out in the outdoors for a while.
But the search turns up no signs of him. Hopes for finding Jeremy alive in the woods begin to fade.
As the days went on and there were cold nights, we knew that it was inevitable that he wouldn't be alive. I mean, if he was still in the woods.
Perhaps Jeremy isn't in the woods. Could Jeremy, who's known to pick up and go on a whim, actually be somewhere far from Belfast, Maine?
You know, there was always in our mind a question whether he was actually, you know, a little bit like, okay, maybe he just took off.
Then, investigators get a lead from another motorist who saw Jeremy as she was driving on Pound Hill Road the afternoon he disappeared. She told police he was talking to two men in a red pickup truck.
That was a truck of interest. The police talked about it, and we were hopeful that it meant something.
The area where Jeremy's van was found in Northport, we subsequently learned was a place that was commonly used for drug activity. It's isolated, but it's easy to get to.
So they don't know if he went to this place to meet somebody.
The two guys, in my mind, sort of bolstered Jeremy's story that people might have been after him.
Months go by with no other leads. Then, in September of 2004, 5 months after Jeremy disappears, there is one final search over the terrain around Northport. The searchers find nothing. With the coming winter, the official searches will end. By now, Ted and Susan suspect that Jeremy is lost not to the woods, but to foul play.
As the time progressed, we were questioning whether he was actually lost in the woods or if somebody had done something to him.
Maybe he owed money to somebody, maybe they owed money to him. I don't know, but if you put two and two together, that's sort of what you come up with.
Coming up, the case is about to go cold when a stranger comes forward with tantalizing new information about Jeremy.
He said that he had Jeremy's license and he had his money. You know, you kind of think about how could this possibly be? It's been 4 years.
Get more Disappeared online at investigationdiscovery.com. In the days after 28-year-old Jeremy Alex disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 2004, hopes were high that he would be found in the woods into which he was last seen fleeing. But months and 3 extensive searches later, those hopes die.
To have someone disappear, it's definitely unusual in any community, but I think that the circumstances surrounding how Jeremy appeared and then disappeared is what is really stymied the entire community.
From their home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Jeremy's father, Ted, and stepmother, Susan, continue to monitor their son's case, poring over maps of the area where he went missing. The couple do what they can to keep Jeremy's disappearance in the public eye, putting up posters promising a reward which rises to $20,000.
The family was really good about keeping the media spotlight on as much as they possibly could. They had a website and they made regular contact with us.
There wasn't a lot to do but put posters out and talk to people. We would just go through and put these posters, you know, wherever we could.
The posters generate tips, some of them very disturbing.
There were a lot of rumors going around of foul play. Jeremy was killed, thrown in a granite quarry. I'd go up and search the quarries. Somebody heard that Jeremy was killed and buried or thrown in a well. We just followed the tips that I would get on the phone, unrelated to what the police were, you know, dealing with.
But Jeremy remains missing. Months after he disappears, his girlfriend Suzanne has a vivid dream that the two of them are together once more.
We were hugging and it just felt so real and so like the energy and He actually is like, well, I have to say goodbye now. And then when I woke up, it felt like I'd really just been talking to him and hugging him. And it was pretty intense.
Jeremy's family and friends struggle with a sense of hopelessness. And then, almost 6 months after Jeremy's disappearance, there is a tantalizing new development. Tips come in that a young man resembling Jeremy has appeared out of the woods in another part of Maine.
There were some unusual sightings in Owl's Head, which is about a half an hour south of Northport, straight down Route 1. 2 people had reported seeing this person come out of the woods, not saying anything, looking very disheveled, and they swore that this was Jeremy, that it looked exactly like Jeremy.
Wayne Drinkwater owns a soup and sandwich shop in Belfast. He says he sees the young man on property he owns near Owl's Head.
I had seen the posters of Jeremy, but it looked just like Jeremy. And I asked him his name, and he didn't seem to be there. He didn't seem to respond. And I came back to Belfast, and I called the sheriff. And I said, I think I found Jeremy.
But when police pursue the lead, it turns out to be another dead end.
There just happens to be someone who looks very much like Jeremy, who has some mental health issues.
In a cruelly ironic twist, the lookalike's name is also Jeremy. He has been lost in the woods briefly after wandering away from his family. After the disappointment of the false Jeremy Alex sightings, Ted asks the Maine State Police to get involved. In 2006, more than 2 years after Jeremy's disappearance, they launch a special search of a local pond.
On August 25th, 2006, we found out that the state police were going to do a search at a pond called Knight's Pond in Northport.
Someone had got arrested and told the police that her boyfriend or whatever said that he had killed Jeremy and threw him in Knight's Pond.
According to our information, they had gotten a tip that they should look in Knight's Pond, and they did. They sent a diver and searched the pond and didn't find anything.
2 more years pass by, with no apparent headway in the case. Then, in August of 2008, an intriguing new lead comes to Jeremy's dad. At first, he is suspicious.
Offering the reward unfortunately brought out some people that just were calling for the reward. So I, was really wary of this one email I received, one day from a gentleman that said that he had Jeremy's license and he had his money. You kind of think about how could this possibly be? It's been 4 years.
The email comes from Jim Baker, a retired California Highway Patrol officer who owns a restaurant in Searsport, Maine, just outside of Belfast. He hasn't followed the Jeremy Alex saga closely.
The one time that I think I can clearly remember reading or seeing something about it was a poster that was in the gas station with his picture on it, and it basically had his name and that he was missing. But I really didn't know much more about it other than that.
The story of how he comes to be in possession of Jeremy's driver's license and money is stranger than fiction. It begins on a night in April 2004, shortly after Jeremy goes missing.
My best friend that lived across the bay from us, Tim Dougal, he came in one night, started talking to me about how he had hit the big time or hit the jackpot because money was washing up on his beach. He and his wife had been out beachcombing like they did a lot of times and had started to find small denomination bills amongst the rocks, and he had pulled out a small wad of bills. I remember joking with him, telling him, well, you're buying drinks for everybody tonight. And he said, no, 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 no. We collect stuff on the beach and we keep it. And so he put it back in his pocket. And that was the end of that for quite some time.
On April 23, 2008, almost 4 years to the day after Jeremy Alex disappeared, Jim's friend Tim is killed in a freak accident at his oceanfront property. When his widow Debbie returns to the weekend getaway, months later, she asks Jim to come over.
She started to relate the story about finding the money on the beach. And I remember asking her, you guys saved that money? And she says, oh yeah, it's all in there, you know, buried under some sea glass, and along with the driver's license that we had found at the same time. It kind of caused me to pause, and I don't know if it's my background or what it was, but I instantly had this strange feeling. And I said, you know, did you guys ever contact anybody or anything? She said, no, we really didn't, you know, think about it.
Inside a glass vase, buried in a collection of sea glass and other objects, Jim Baker finds the money and the driver's license.
I looked at it and saw Jeremy's face and his name, and I instantly remembered that poster. And I said to her, I said, Debbie, I said, I think this is a kid that went missing a couple of years ago or so.
Coming up, an important new clue shifts the search for Jeremy from the woods to the water.
A body would just be carried out straight down that channel right out into the ocean.
You would rather know than not, even if it's the worst case scenario.
It has been 4 years since Jeremy Alex went missing. Now, former Highway Patrol Officer Jim Baker holds an important piece of the puzzle: his driver's license. Jim visits internet sites about Jeremy Alex and confirms that the license must have belonged to Jeremy and that he is still missing. He notifies the authorities.
I basically told him, look, this is who I am, where I live, and this is what I found. I think somebody needs to call me. In the meantime, nobody called me back for a while, and so I sent Ted an email with the same information.
Days later, the license and money that were first found on the beach in April of 2004 are in the hands of the state police.
The best that we could determine was probably within a couple of days of his disappearance. That's when they started to find the stuff on the beach. Jeremy was last seen with some money in his hand and then took off in the direction of the coast and in the general direction of Tim and Deb's house.
For Ted, it is one more terribly ironic twist.
We were in that neighborhood searching. We put posters up on the street where they lived. They just never put two and two together that this could possibly be a lost person. And that's the sad part about it, because 4 years, you know, there's not a lot of evidence, even if there was other things washed up on shore.
Ted goes back to the area and searches the rocky beach where Jeremy's license and money were found. For months, he returns, looking for another sign or clue that might lead him to Jeremy.
You know, if he was running towards the beach and towards the cliffs, disoriented, not sure where he was, frightened, whatever, you know, is it possible that he went off the cliff into the water?
But 4 years later, there is no further trace of Jeremy to be found here. These days, life in Belfast, Maine goes on pretty much the same as it always has. Historic houses grace the heights above the waterfront. Lobster fishermen ply the waters of Penobscot Bay alongside pleasure boats. Shops and restaurants cater to tourists who are just passing through. There's still just one stoplight in the center of town. The only late-night bar attracts the same loyal locals it has for decades. And Jeremy Alex is still missing.
We've had a missing poster since we got the first one in 2004, days afterwards. And when it starts to wear out from the sun, we print another one out. The family's been pretty good about, sending us updates.
Ted calls, the police that are working on it and, may occasionally talk to them, but there hasn't been probably any movement, and at least that we know of, in maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and that's a long time.
The Maine State Police say they don't publicly discuss open cases.
The police have not shared with us directly any theories. I think that they believe, as the family does, that something bad has happened to Jeremy. It's still very much an open case to them.
Ted and Susan are divorced now. They say they're still close and united in their efforts to do anything they can to find Jeremy. Their biggest hope is that people who have been reluctant to offer information in the past might be willing to speak today, at least anonymously, to put their minds at rest.
And I truly believe that some of those people did know, never came forward. And we've tried. We've gone back up there, we've tried going to their houses, we've tried pleading with them just to let us know it would be anonymous, but nothing.
Jeremy's friend Kathy shares that hope.
I want to feel that somebody knows something. It hurts. I miss him. I loved him very much. And I'm going to always miss him.
Noting the extensive searches for Jeremy, which turned up nothing, Susan and Ted both say they now believe Jeremy is a victim of foul play. They think he was involved with some shady people over drugs and became their victim.
I don't think Jeremy's in the woods. I think he's in the ocean, finding his license, wash up in money. I think he was running, and whoever was chasing him caught him, and they took him out and did something to him and dropped the body.
Jim Baker believes that Jeremy may have fallen from the cliffs onto the rocks and been swept out to sea.
I've talked to people that have spent a lot of years up here on the water, and they don't find it unusual that a body would not come back up, that it would just be carried out straight down that channel right out into the ocean.
It is truly a mystery. So many possibilities of what happened to him. It'd be nice to know which one it was.
You would rather know than not, and it's true, even if it's the worst case scenario, because I've already played that worst case scenario in my head multiple ways.
The house where Suzanne and Jeremy lived before he disappeared is abandoned now and neglected. It is the last place Suzanne ever saw Jeremy, and 16 months after he disappeared, she returned to her native California.
It's almost like a wound that won't scar. I'm pretty strong, so some of it I take as, okay, that's part of my life, and he was in it, and I'm happy that I got to spend the time I did with him. Once that happened, I realized, like, oh, I need to go spend quality time with my family because people aren't here forever.
She still has the dog, Gonzo, Jeremy helped her pick out.
He's a connection to Jeremy, and actually sometimes he reminds me of Jeremy because he's feisty and he's short and he's got an attitude.
Back in Portsmouth, Jeremy's father established a charitable fund to help kids at risk called the Jeremy Alex Fund.
What I've tried to do is try to help other people or other kids not end up like Jeremy. And I think that's just a way of healing for me.
Because chess was Jeremy's favorite game, the fund gives out chessboards to all the fourth graders in town along with instructions on how to play.
We go in, we talk a little bit about Jeremy. I keep it light. I talk about, chess is a lot like life. You make decisions and you need to be responsible for your actions. And so they make the right decisions and they realize the consequences of what they do to themselves doesn't just affect them, it affects their family forever.
Friends and family say they know that after all this time, it is unlikely that Jeremy's story will have a happy ending. And none of them believe it is possible that Jeremy could have gone off somewhere for years without ever contacting the people closest to him.
A Father's Day would go by, or my birthday, or Susan's, and we knew that he would always call. He was considerate like that. Even though he was a free spirit, he knew my cell phone number and he knew to call.
Jeremy had too big of a heart to put people through this, or to put Ted and his family and Suzanne and then the rest of his friends to have that emotional burden. I don't believe that Jeremy ever would do something like that. There would have been contact.
There's so much speculation around Jeremy's case because there are so many possibilities. He could still have just fallen into a well and could be out in the woods. But it could also be something, a part of a bigger piece of a puzzle, a group of people involved in something. We just don't know.